This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Sadi Hey. We pick it up on the bottom of Sadi Dalid Amid Beis. We are 6 lines from the bottom, in which we're middle of discussing that Kazlanim Malve Ribis, even though that they might have a Chiyav Lotzei Zidei Shamayim to offer the payment back to those that they stole from, to those that they took ribis from. However, the one that actually should get the money back is not supposed to accept it. Why? A takana, so that people actually want to do tshuva. So continues the Gemara, Tashema, another kasha. Harayim v'hagabayim v'hamoichsim Chuvasa nekashe, their tshuva is difficult. Shepherds, gabayim of taxes, moichsim, those who collect the customs, if they mess up, tshuva is kasha. Why? Zak Rashi, about 10 lines to the bottom, because they've stolen a lot, and they don't know which person that they have to give back the taxes, whom they took too much from, etc. So Chuvasa and Kasha, Umachziran Lamakirin, they return to those who they know, but anyone who they don't know, there's nothing they could do. But what do we see clearly? We see that those that they do know, there is a Chiyav Haishava to return it. Answers the Gemara, Amri Machzirin again, Vein Mekablim Mehem. Yes, they have to return it. But the fact that they have to return it doesn't mean that it's accepted. They're not supposed to accept. Says the Gemara, 4 lines to the bottom, the same question we had yesterday. So what are you returning it for? To fulfill their heavenly obligation, to do their part. Says the Gemara, so why is it a difficult tshuva? Sounds like a pretty simple tshuva. Sounds like a tshuva that you could be finished very quickly because you're never going to have to lose a penny. Void, and furthermore, the seifa of that brisa says, Ushein makirin yasvin sarchei sibor. The seifa of the brisa says that those that they do not recognize that they took from them, what do? Yasem sarchei tzibor. They should use the money to pay for public needs. Ve'amer Rav Chisda explained, what does that mean? Bayrais, shichin, uma'arais. So what do we see? They have to make wells and whatnot. So clearly, there is actually something they have to do. Clearly, they do actually have to spend money for the fact that we're seeing that they actually have to make wells and whatnot for those who they don't remember that they stole from. Says the Gemara, Elaloi Kasha, 2 lines from the bottom. Kan koidem takana. The brisa, which says you actually have to pay, that was before the takana sashavim. That was before the takana that was made in order to make it easier for those to admit that they stole. Whereas kan nachar takana, the original brisa that said they should not accept it, was after the takana. Says the Gemara another way. V'hashta damar Rav Nachman. Now that we know that Rav Nachman says in the last line, B'shein gizela kayemes, Rav Nachman says that when was the takana made to not have to pay back was only when the gzila is not kayames. Then afilu teimai divaidi lachar takana. Then we could say that both of them are referring to lachar takana, v'loy kasha, and still there be no question as we move over to Sadihei and Aleph. Kan b'gzila kayames, kan b'she'ein gzila kayames. The difference would be whether the gzila is kayames, then you would have to pay it back. When it's not kayames, you would not. Asks the Gemara on the second line of Sadihei Amid Aleph, V'ha Avneit. But what are you talking about? But we know that the Brisa was discussing an Avneit, and an Avneit is the Gzela Kayamesi. A belt is around. Answers the Gemara, Maya Avneit. What do you mean by Avneit? Meant to me, Avneit. Meant the value, but didn't actually mean the Avneit, the belt itself. Ask the Gemara, is it true that whenever the Gzela is around, the Chachamim did not make a takana? But Varei Marish, the Gzela Kayamesi, but a beam where the Gzela is Kayames Utanan, and we learned in a Mishnah earlier in the Masechta and in Gittin, Alamarish Agazal Albin that is stolen Shabanai Bebira, that someone builds into their house, You do not. What do you have to do? Sheyatel damaf. You only give back the cash. You don't give back the item. Why? So what do we see? We see even though the item is around, there still was a takana. Explains the Gemara Shiny Asam the Kivanika Pseida Debira Shavi Rabbana and Kidelesa. Since there's the loss to the mansion, if you have to take out that beam, Chachamim considered as if it's the lessa, as if it is not around, and that's the reason why you would not have to return it. And Rashi points out in the last Y line, Umiu dmei ba'i lahadure. Why? Because lemaisa, at some level, the gzela is niskayim. Therefore, you do have to pay back the actual item. You do have to give it back. Continues the Gemara, Gazel para mu'beres v'yalda. Continues the Gemara 8 lines down, quoting the Mishnah of someone stole a para which was pregnant, and then it gives birth, or you shear off its wool, etc. What do? Said the Mishnah, you pay the value of the cow when it was stolen, not after the baby was born. Tana Rabbanan says the Gemara, Hagazel Rachel Ugazes. You stole a sheep and you shore it. Para cow v'yalda and gave birth. Meshale Maisa, you pay back it. Vaskizayseha and the shearings. Vaslidayseho Divira Meir. You have to pay back the item itself, the shearings, the child. That's Rameir Shita. Rav Yehuda Imer says Rav Yehuda. Zela Chayzeres V'enei. Says Rav Yehuda, the item that you stole, return it as it is right now. Rav Shimon Omer says Rav Shimon Rayin Isa Kilu Hishuma Etzloi. We look at the item as if it was evaluated by him, by Kesef, whatever the value, the dollar value of the item was. So 3 shitais, says the Gemara, as to how you would evaluate the payments over here. Says the Gemara, let's understand this a little bit deeper. Ibai luhu. Let's go. We'll start with Shitas Rameir. Meir. My time of Rameir. Misham de Kasavar. Because Rameir holds. Shini b'mekayma is the reason why Rameir holds that you only pay the animal that it was worth. You pay the animal and the gizaysa and the vlad deysa. Is it because Rameir holds that Shina b'mekayma made that the fact that the animal changed did not create a kinyan and therefore you have to pay back everything? Or normally, yes, Shina kaina. But maybe over here it's a special case. Kanaso de kanas. We canast him, we find him, the robber. What's the difference? When it went down in value. So then maybe Rameir would agree, you don't pay back the animal as it is right now with the Vlad Eisa and the Giz Eisa. But rather, if it went down in value, then Rameir would agree you have to pay back the original item. Says the Gemara, Tashema, let's try to figure out Shitas Rameir. Says in our Brais, a Mishnah, cause al behema vizkina, you stole a behema and it got old. Avodim vizkina, a Evan, and it got old. Mishalim Mishas like Zela, you paid the time that you stole it. Rabbi Meir Oimer, about Vadim. When it comes to slaves, Oimer la Rishal Chalavanecha, here, take him back. Feel behema kishas Zela. By behema goes at the moment that you stole it. If Shitas Rameir is the fact that there was a shina, there was a change in the item, does not affect an acquisition and a kinyan, and therefore you pay back from the original item. Ask the Gemara if that is true. So even in our case, pay it back the way that it is right now, because there's no kinyan. So you have to pay back right now. Why in this case is Rameir teaching us that by the behema you pay back kishas like zela? Elolav, what must be the reason? Proves the Gemara. Shema mina k'sav Rameir shinoi kaine. Rameir must hold that the shinoi is a kinyan. V'hacha, in our case, the reason why you take back the gizei savla they sell kanasahu de kanas. It's a simple kinas that they have to pay, but really, in reality, there is a kinyan on the item, and that's the reason why, in the case of the behemoth shezkina, the Mishnah that we quoted, you pay back kishas gezela. Says the Gemara, Amri no. Rameir ledivreim derabanan kamar lehu. No, don't bring me a right to Shitas Rameir because he's just responding to the Chachamim. Ledidi shinoi ein koine. I hold, says Rameir, there's no kinyan by the shini. Va'afilu behema nami. And even the animal itself, really, the halacha should be the same thing as the Eved, and you should be able to say, Arei shel chalaf anecha, it's yours. According to you, the Rabbanan, Damritu Yishina Kaina, you hold the Shini is yes, Kaina. Says Rameir, Oidali Mios, at least. Admit to me, Ba'avda the Kamakarkoi Dami, that an Eved is like Karka, a Karka in an exeles, and that's why you give it back, and you can just say, Arei shel chalaf anecha. The Amri lay Rabbanon, and the Rabbanon responded, Loi. Avda is kimakal tatloi dami, and Eved is like mitaltlin. Says the Gemara, so you can't bring me a raya as to what exactly is Shitas Rameir, as the case that we just quoted, the Mishnah might have just been Rameir responding to the Chachamim. Tashemas, the Gemara tries again. We're a little bit past the halfway mark of the Amud. The first line is Tashema. Or if someone gives wool to someone and he told it dye it for me red and he dyed it black, Shachar told him to dye it black, and he dyed it red. You have just given the value of the wool. Says sounds like according to Rameir, you don't have to pay for the betterment of the item because he did the wrong thing. If you're going to tell me Rameir holds that a shinoy, a changing item, is not a kinyan, so then there was no kinyan, so every year you have to pay back everything. Except Rameir shinoy kaineh. So by us, shma mean not just a special kanas, but the several of the sell. The Rameir holds you have to pay back everything, but normally he would hold that Shino is yes, koinem. Ika diamri continues the Gemara about 15 lines to the bottom. The first one line is kanas, another lashon of the previous Gemara. The following, what Rameir holds, whether Rameir holds Shino is yes, koine or not a koine, that wasn't a kasha. Why? Rav switched around the opinions in the Mishnah, and he taught as follows. Gazal paraviskina vadaviskina misham mishas like zela divi Rameir. That the Chachamim's Shita was Rameir's. Vadel Rameir Shina Kain. So it's clear according to Rameir, Shina is yes Kain. Vacha Kanasu Dikakanas. Kikami Bailan, Achi Bailan. Kika Kanas bemazed. Avil Beshoigeg like Kanas. Is the Kanas only if you did it maliciously, only if you did it on purpose? Or you don't more, maybe if you live Nami Kanas. On that, Shema Chamisha Gaivim Minamachurarim. 5 people collect from Mechurarin properties which are not sold. Ve'eluhein peiros. These are the people that have a claim of peiros against the Baal Bayis. V'shevach peiros, the improvements. V'amakabel of Lazan ben Ishtai, ubast Ishtai. Someone accepts upon himself to support some of his wife's family. V'get chayiv, she'in bayachrayis. Uksubas isha, she'in bayachrayis. Or uksubas isha. I'm sorry that the Amud keeps on disappearing. Where are we? There it is. So man shamisle, who is the Tana of this? The Amar Achrayis lav toyisayfer. Who is Rameir? V'katani peiros shvach peiros. It says peiros and the shvach peiros. Shvach peiros hechi dami. What is the case of shvach, the improvements of peiros? Kigain. Our case, Chigaz also the Mechaveru Machralacher Vishbichan, better the field. And he has control of it. When you collect from such a field, what's the halacha? Says the Gemara, we turn over to study Heya Midbeis. Goiva Sakaren Minachase Mishubadim. Why? To asa balara v'shakal are v'shivchei. The reason is the original Baal of the Karka comes and takes both the land and the Shevach, because that was his item. So says the Gemara, my love ba'am aretz lo yada de Karka nigzeles. That's what we're referring to. Oyena nigzeles. He doesn't know whether yes Karka nigzeles, whether no Karka nigzeles. And yet, what do we just say? The halacha is the Baal Karka comes and he takes the land and the improvement. Shema mina b'shogeg nami kanas. Even though it's a shogeg, we see a kanas as well. Amri loy. There's talmid chacham, and he knows that karka is eina nigzeles, and therefore, when he bought the stolen land and he was mashbiach it, he knew that there was no kinyan, and he was using someone else's item, and therefore, it could be that in such a case, a mayor makes a kanas, but not. Such a case, even though it was a mazid. So Tashema continues the Gemara. Let's prove what the story is. Let's violate Adam mitzavah shachar, shachar mitzavah Adam. Or a mayor, I mean, I said to make samara. You pay the value of the wall. To make samara, to make samara shvachalai. Vis akadaitach b'shaging nami kanas. To make samara shvachalai lemesi, you have to pay everything. Allah shmami. No, what do we have? A raya b'mezid kanas b'shagig loy kanas. So in the second lashon, we deal with the kinas. It says the Gemara, V'shoyeg, there will be no kinas. And we continue, we're at the two dots, about 15 lines down. Rebbe Yehuda, Imer Gezela, Chayzeres. What's the status? It says of Yehuda, Gezela, Chayzeres, Be'ene. Again, we're in the middle of a brisa which had multiple shitais. First was Rameir that we just dealt with. Number two is Rav Yehuda Gzeil Chazeres Beini, and Rav Shimon is opinion number three that he says Roina Zakili Yishuma Etzlai Bekesef. So says the Gemara, these opinions of Rav Yehuda, of Rav Shimon, what are the chalukim? My Beinayu says the Gemara, what is the difference? Amar Rav Zvid teaches Rav Zvid B'Shevach Shal Yedei Gzeila Kamifli. The machlokes is of Shevach, of items shal gabe gzela that are still attached to the stolen item kamifliki. Rav Yehuda Savar in the nigzel, he goes to the nigzel. Rav Shimon, the one they got the item stolen from, Rav Shimon Savar the gazlan have, it goes to the gazlan. And Rav Papa comes along and he says the kuliyalma, Rav Papa Amar the kuliyalma, shevach shal gabe gzela the gazlan have. Everyone holds that the shevach goes to the gazlan. So what's going on by us? Well, the shaila is, what level of shevach, of improvements, does the gazlan take? Does he take the whole thing, a half, a third, a quarter? So on that, Rav Yehuda Savar shevach al gabi gzela kulei de gazlan. No. Rav Shimon Savar lemetzle shishul Rav Yehuda shakel. Only take a half, a third, etc. Continues the shakel gazlan. That's what the gazlan takes. So we just quoted almost parenthetically the sheet of Rav Papa. The Rav Papa says shevach shel gabi gzela. So Tanan asked the Gemara, Kezel barav in his abra, etz levi yalda. The animal became pregnant and gives birth. Rachel, a sheep, v'nit ana etzla, and it grows a sheep by you. V'gazla, and you cut it off. Mishalem kshas like zela. But it's obvious the yalda in only in a case where it was got pregnant by the master. Whereas lo yalda, if not, then hadra beinei. You return it in its state. So says the Gemara, Bish, he goes to the one they had it stolen from, the Rav Yehuda, Hamani Rav Yehudi, then this Bryce is beautiful, it's a bit Rav Yehuda. Elo the Rav Papa, the Amar, the Gazlan Ave, Hamani, Loi Rav Yehuda, Loi Rav Shimon. This comes out that this is no one. Why not? It comes out that it's neither of Yehuda or of Shimon. So on this, Amr l'chara Papa, no. Hu adin afilu lo yolda nami kishas like zelahu de mishalim. Hadikatani yolda idinasiv reisha yolda nasiv seifa nami yolda. It was just written because of the Reisha and Tani Kavasi Dera Papa Rav Shimon Omer Rainas Akili Hishuma Etzlai Bekesav Lemechsel Shish Uleravia. So Brisa explicitly saying over the same shita as Rav Papa. We finish off with one last story. Amar Rav Ashi Kavina Be Rav Kana Yibayilan. Rav Shimon asked Amar Lemechsel Shish Uleravia. Who did Shakal Gazlan Kim Masalkin Allah B'Demei Masalkin Allah? You let it give him the cash. I don't Makshira Mevisara Shakal. Maybe bisur shakel from meat of the animal itself, umi pishtanan from the flax, from the wool of the sheep, you pay. Meaning you have to pay from the item itself. Tamar Nachon of Shmuel Shleisha, Shamim Hashevach, Umaylan Asor B'Dam V'Eloin B'Char Liv Shoit, Ubal Chayv L'Keach, Ubal Chayv L'Yisaimim. All of these cases, and this is where Shmuel teaches. That's what the din will be based on the kasha of Rav, the shaila of Rav Ashi. So again, what are we answering? That the Baal Chayv L'Loikeach, he pays cash to the Loikeach, Ubal Chayv L'Yisaimim pays cash to the Yisaimim. We'll pick it up with Ravina's kasha to Shmuel in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.